I am super thrilled because we have Brett Gosper with us, who is NFL head of UK and Europe. Brett, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background? How did you become the head of UK and Europe?
A little bit of background, probably most of my career in marketing and communications, running advertising agencies in different parts of the world, including a brief time even in Germany. So in France, a little bit in Germany, running a partner in an agency that was partly owned by Havas in London here for a period of time, and ran McCann Erickson in New York in the United States and in Europe. McCann being one of the bigger shops in marketing services, and then flipped categories and was recruited by World Rugby, which is the governing body of the sport of rugby, the International Federation, to take the CEO role there, which I did for about 9 years, and was heading towards the France Rugby World Cup when someone from the NFL tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Would you be interested in joining us as head of Europe?" And here I've been now for about 18 months, a little bit more than 18 months, actually. We're 20 months, so coming up closer to 2 years now. So quite a change, but a good, positive, fresh change.
Nice. That's quite a journey, I guess. Really, really cool. So when we're actually talking about Germany, because like the game in Munich, super exciting for all of us. Can you talk us around like the whole process in terms of the Germany game? So when did Germany become a realistic opportunity for the league? And also, was it quite challenging maybe to get this game finalized so quickly? Because between the announcement and the game, it wasn't that much time actually.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of debate on whether we should be going this year or next year. In the early part of the planning, there was quite a bit of COVID-related issues and so on. But, I think a few of us thought we wanted to press on, get a game in Germany as quickly as we possibly could. We had quite a thorough, more than lengthy, but reasonably lengthy process of a little bit of an Olympic bid city process with a consultant called the Sports Consultancy, who helped us out, and some friendly rivalry between German cities is always good fun and interesting, and I think that tension helped everyone. I think it helped the cities and ourselves get to a good place and think broader than just a stadium rental, but real partnerships with city, with state government, with football clubs in the cases that we're talking about as well. So it was a very, very good process. We accelerated as best we could. We're excited to get into Germany as quickly as possible, and I think the German fans very keen to get their first regular season NFL game as soon as possible too, and so they should be keen. And I've always kind of wondered why we were not in Germany earlier with these games. And I think part of my role as head of Europe was to broaden our thinking and make sure that we were looking at things from a European perspective, which at the moment essentially means UK, Germany, with some other obviously important markets, but from a game point of view, UK and Germany. So I wanted to go as quick as I could.
There were several cities applying, but why did Munich stand out?
Yeah, there were. I think initially, actually, I can't remember the number. There were a lot of cities in the initial, show of interest. Munich stood out, and again, there were 2 cities chosen over the 4 years. As you know, there was Frankfurt and Munich will each receive 2 games in the next 4 years. Munich's strength was obvious, and I think in a way, I think the other cities saw them as the front runner. Obviously, a magnificent stadium with an incredible history. A city that's obviously good for inbound, out external, very well known to foreigners and so on, with an experience of putting on international events. The connection with Bayern Munich, which is obviously a powerhouse in European football, and the synergies and opportunities of interaction between our social platforms and fan bases on each side of the Atlantic and across Europe. So there were some obvious, I think, attractions. In the same way, I think, Frankfurt was very attractive, obviously a strong centre for American football and NFL historically, whether it be through American bases and the leagues that operated in that region, and a lot of, hunger and desire by the teams that were running those bids there, and an excellent stadium in Frankfurt as well, and just, good partners both in Munich and in Frankfurt through the city and through the football clubs. And we've built, very strong. We're obviously working much more closely with Munich right now because this game is imminent, but, we've struck a very strong partnership with Bayern, and, our teams work very well with them, and everyone is incredibly excited. I think in the beginning there was, new management a little bit at Munich, and they were very focused on their own results in football, and maybe we might have even been a little bit of a distraction when we started talking to them at Munich. But they've certainly got into the spirit and are proving to be excellent partners as we go forward towards this game.
So there was a lot of positive stuff right there. But maybe if there are, what are kind of like logistical challenges that you could also identify with like having a game in Munich?
Yeah, look, I think there's any place you go to that you've never played a game in before, you're going to discover things, and we discover things all of the time as we move forward and over the period. And actually, that period of the bid process enabled us to really do a thorough dive into the stadiums and the infrastructure and the city transport systems and security. And all of these elements, and to gauge the cooperation of the city in running events in the inner city, and how can we do tailgate and whatever. But the usual challenges are, it's just a huge number of people in an NFL club that come into town. Players alone, as the locker rooms have to be extended, the showers have to be extended, the field has to be extended. There's a lot of, there's concern that, that the field will be in great shape as we leave. So we'll replace the field in Munich as well with a brand new perfect pitch that will not be soiled by NFL players. So all sorts of things that you just need to logistically prepare to ensure our partners are happy and that we're happy with the way things go. And people are in the stadium a longer period of time. So, hospitality, things like that are quite different. There are logistics around ticket selling because our systems weren't exactly synchronized and the same. And, they have their own, premium clientele, and there are people they would like, loyal people they'd like also looked after. And so they were reconciling things all the time and just making sure that we can put on the very best possible game, but respecting some of the parameters that those hosts are laying down for us. And we have probably higher security standards in many ways than some of the football leagues in Europe and so on. And again, that requires some infrastructure and in operations and hardware that's also important for us. So we think we've had adequate time to get, and there's also training fields to make sure they're at the level they need to be, hotels that can take, there are as many coaches in a playing squad in football for American football versus soccer. So the number of coaches that come in, everything is just of a scale which football clubs are just not used to and stadia are not used to, and we've had to get everyone used to that and comfortable with that.
That's super, super interesting. Can you also tell us a little bit more about the process on a local level? I mean, government, local representatives, and also how did maybe a general manager from Germany, Dr. Alexander Steinfurt, help you on this whole process?
Yeah, but the good news is Alex has joined us during this process. I mean, we were flying a little bit blind culturally, I'd say, in the early part. And I think Alex's arrival has helped build some bridges and some greater understanding between some of the entities that we're dealing with. And now having Alex, and he's starting to build a team on the ground, is providing excellent first-hand contact with the interface we have, obviously with the cities, with the football clubs, the stadia, the states, the parliament, the full state level. We've also got ambassadors, American ambassador on the ground, and consulates that are also involved in each city. So Alex certainly has his hands full dealing with all of that. Plus, obviously, he's arrived at a time where he can turbocharge our commercial approach. We've also been going through, media discussions in Germany as well. So having an office and having a leader of the caliber of Alex in Germany has been, a particular boost for our efforts there.
So you already told us a lot about like the relationship to Bayern Munich, and like the Allianz Arena kind of seems like a perfect fit when it comes to an arena. But what we also thought about a lot is like the whole game day experience. Like, what is this going to be like? Lots of fans from Europe when they go to the US, like tailgating and stuff is always like huge. So that's something we also talked about. Like, maybe what can we imagine how this is going to be looking when the game is actually taking place in Munich?
Yeah, and we see it as a week-long series of events. Which is a bit like a Germany Super Bowl. So really in the build-up, there'll be all sorts of activities leading up to the game. A lot of them fan-based, flag football, a lot of fan events on the day itself, of course. We've got our academy playing up there against the Bavarian side. So we're building all sorts of events and some pageantry, with the consulate and so on. All of that is going to be happening around that week, and giving people, and there's so much interest. I've got to tell you, from we know what the ticketing queues were, and that would have frustrated a lot of people. We know, but at the same time, I don't think Ticketmaster's ever seen demand for a single game outside of the States that high. We had more than 700,000 people. I think even it might have got to 800 in the queue for ticketing. Ticketmaster was saying they could have sold, if we had the supply, 3 million tickets for the game if we needed
Crazy.
to. Which is quite astounding sort of stats. I'm not sure we'd have got 3 million into a stadium, but they're quite eye-watering statistics. But lots of excitement being built. A lot of inbound too. I think a lot of those, like here we get, depending on the game, 6 to 10% inbound from Germany filling the stadium here in the UK. And I think you've got a similar amount going back the other way. From the States as well. So many people wanting to be at that first ever game, and knowing also that the high likelihood that Tom Brady's in the center of the field as well. So lots of reasons to get excited about this happening.
You already told us that the demand was crazy, super high. Could you imagine to have several games in Germany for a season like you have basically in the UK?
It's possible. I mean, at the moment, the inventory is a bit limited in the sense that we've got this, we've got a game in Mexico, 2 in London, and 1 in Germany. So there is now an obligation. It's baked into the schedule over the next 8 years, this rotating international inventory. We also have an extra game in London because the Jags choose of their own bat to play a game here each year at Wembley. But opportunities will happen in the coming years. Sometimes you have stadium issues in home markets and so on. And we're very much looking at the possibility of what would that look like if we did play 2 games, maybe not every year, but on an occasional basis in Germany to help satisfy the demand that obviously the German public is showing towards NFL. So hopefully that chance will come sooner rather than later, but we're certainly examining that possibility.
We kind of asked Dr. Alexander Steinfurt this question as well. So we will ask you as well. Imagine it is 5 years from now, it's 2027, but you also see the growth of the game. I mean, in Munich, in Germany, especially like in all over Europe, also with like the role of international football for the NFL, because there are other leagues in the US and they have stepped out a bit more. Like lots of other players are coming in from international, from other countries, but the NFL is still maybe a bit late on all of that. So how do you see that developing until 2027?
Look, I think, from a German perspective, we'd really like to be seen as, and we've seen this in some of the surveys already, that it's, the second most watched sport on broadcast television and so on. We'd like it to be, it's soccer or football is so implanted in Germany, such a strong position. It'd be great to be the other sport in Germany, through the eyes of the fans in Germany, in that strong position. That's got to be a goal for us, and to continue growing, the visibility and the fan base in Germany in the coming years. There's still a lot of spaces, as strong as Germany is, we're there because the potential is all that much stronger. And similarly around Europe, we're seeing growth. Still high growth in the UK and other strong markets like Spain, like France, the Nordics, Italy. We're seeing strong growth. So we think that it is still a very modern offer, the NFL. It's something that people are attracted to. And in the same way that's maintained its dominant position in the United States, it has a lot of room here to continue to grow from strength to strength. And that's what we're working to.
Thank you so much for those insights. Super, super interesting. I think for us, for our listeners, for the people who are watching on YouTube. And yeah, we wish you all the best for the first game. And thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you in Munich.
Yeah.
For sure.
By the way, there's a watch party happening in Frankfurt as well. So that will be interesting for people who want to go live and watch it on screen in Frankfurt too. So all of that's exciting. Thanks very much for having me.
For sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.